snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books.
Hi guys! So I am here today to do a book review, and the book that I'm going to be reviewing is the second book in the Lays of Anuskaya series, which is by Bradley Bolio. This one is called The Straits of Galahesh. I have already done a review for the first book in this series. I'll link to that one up above and you can go check it out if you haven't seen it already, but this will also be non-spoiler as all of my reviews are. As I said, this is book 2 in the series. I will go into this review saying that this series is complicated. There is a lot to take in if you want to read this series. There is a lot of different magic systems, there are a lot of different races, there are different transport methods, different places, different names, different characters, all sorts of things going on. If you like complicated fantasy, you might enjoy this. If you don't like complicated fantasy, you're probably not going to like this. So with that said, what is this all about? This is the continuation of the story from book 1. At the ending of book 1, we have some rather dramatic events take place that basically shake up the whole of this world and mean that the people who we've been following are kind of going to have to do something drastic to change things around and hopefully improve the world that they're living in, but we're not really sure. We pick up this storyline a good few years after the ending of the first book. The first book actually ends and then this one starts about 5 years later, so we've had quite a long time away from the characters, which gives them a chance to have already done stuff, basically. We come back into the story when things have been changed, things have been shaken up. Some of our characters have gone completely away from some of the others and do not speak anymore. Some of them have grown closer and we just kind of come back into the story and have to find out where everyone is. The thing I found most interesting about this book, I think, was the fact that all of the characters we meet are actually spread out in this book, and we follow them as they go to various different parts of the world. I like the fact that we pick the story up about 5 years later and that we do focus on a lot of different areas within the world, because to me, that opened this world up. The first book, it was kind of hinted that there's a lot more out there, whereas this book I felt like we actually saw that there's a lot more out there. We got to see the people, we got to see the different types of magic that they were looking out for, the different politics that were involved in their villages, in their towns, in their cities, and we got to actually go there and see some of our characters interacting with other big political players in this world. As of the ending of book 1, I was left most curious about the character called Nassim, as he played a fairly small part in the first book until the very end, and then was a pretty major part, so I was very intrigued about him and what he would be doing in this book. I think it was kind of essential for his storyline for us to have that 5-ish year gap so that he could kind of develop as a character and find out more about himself. I feel like he didn't really come into his own until the very ending of the previous book, and so he had a lot of exploration to do before we then picked up with his story again. So in this book, Nassim is a young man and he is pretty unsure about what his true purpose in life is. He keeps having these strange, peculiar visions that might be memories. He's not really sure for definite where they come from, although he has a good idea and he has a working theory about what he needs to do. He's not really sure how to achieve this, and so we're kind of following him as he goes around trying to find other people who might help him in whatever he has to do. We then have Nikander, who was another major character from book 1. He is a prince of Kalakovo. He's probably the character that I would class as most pirate-like, because he kind of gallivants around the sky. In this world, a lot of the places are on islands that you can only really get to via airship. Finally, we have Atiana, who is a princess. She was a very major player in the first book, and I think even more so in this one because of who she ends up with. She has some excellent power within her. She's very, very good at manipulating the ether and going into the ether, which is the magical realm essentially, and she has a lot to do in this book that is quite important in terms of the overall plot. She definitely takes on a new role and she moves to a new place where she meets lots of new people and has to kind of integrate into them and also try not to be controlled by them. So I liked seeing her as a character develop, and I liked seeing her sort of battle as she tried to find her place in this new world and also maintain what she believed in already and what she stood for. I really, really enjoyed getting to see a bit more of the magic in this book. I said in my review of the first one that the magic was really intriguing, but we didn't get to see a lot of it and it wasn't explained as fully as I would have liked. I feel like it was explained an awful lot more in this book how it worked, and that made me very happy because I felt kind of silly at times in book one for not necessarily getting it as much as I thought I would. But this book I definitely felt was stronger, and I definitely think explained the magic a lot more. I really enjoyed seeing the elemental spirits who are used within this book. We basically have a system where spirits can be employed by some of the people who have these magical powers to do their bidding, and I really liked seeing the way that they were used and the way that they reacted in situations, which was pretty cool. I do think that reading the glossary at the back of this book and finding out a bit more about the magic is quite essential. I didn't realise that there was actually a sort of magical glossary at the back until I reached the end, because I was reading this on my Kindle. So be aware, if you have this on your Kindle or if you have the physical book, there is actually a helpful guide at the end of this book which tells you all about how the magic works. And for me, that was pretty vital in helping to understand, because yeah, some of the magic in this is complicated, and so it's not easy to remember. Plus, we have use of names that are quite Russian in sound, quite foreign to an English ear, so it's kind of hard to keep track of some of the names of places and some of the names of the magical spirits, so this glossary really helped to sort of solidify them in my head. Another thing that really worked for me was reading the Kindle version alongside listening to the audiobook. I actually got the Whisper Sync function on Amazon where it updates both of them as you go, so you will always be at the right place, and that was really, really helpful for me to not only see how it was written but also hear the narrator of the audiobook saying how it was pronounced, and that really, really helped. I would not recommend starting with this for your first fantasy read. However, I will say if you want to try out some Bradley Beaulieu, his other series, which starts with 12 Kings, and that's the only one currently out, is a lot easier to get into, so perhaps try that one first before coming on to this series and see how you get on with that. Overall, I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's definitely likeable. I did think it was stronger than the first in terms of explanation, but there are some complicated moments, and I'm very intrigued about how it's all going to wrap up, because it seems like the first two books just get more and more dramatic, so how is the ending going to actually tie everything up? I don't know. I'll have to wait and see. I haven't read book 3 yet. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.